Welcome to the Year 5 Homework 8 walkthrough. Let's dive straight into the questions and answers. On the line. For question 1, the answer is A. The author says, "The scoreboard spoke to us and declared we were losing. It stared each of us in the face." This is an example of personification, which is when something non-human is described as if it were human. For question 2, the answer is C. The coach's voice is described as desperate, meaning it sounded very serious or urgent. The coach wanted the team to realize how important the game was. For question 3, the answer is D. The game was so important because winning meant the team would qualify for the state tournament in Atlanta. That's why the game was a big deal. For question 4, the answer is B. The narrator talks about a basketball game they lost and how, years later, they learned an important life lesson from their coach. So, the game was used to explain this life lesson. For question 5, the answer is D. The title, On the Line, is about the coach's speech and the risks and efforts the team faced. It is not about a part of the basketball court. That's why option D is the exception. Cats indoors or out? For question 6, the answer is B. Some cat owners keep their cats indoors because it's dangerous outside and because cats can catch diseases outside. These are reasons I and 2. However, the passage does not mention that cats get enough exercise indoors. For question 7, the answer is A. In paragraph 2, the author says outdoor cats might bring home treats like a dead mole. So, treats means dead animals. For question 8, the answer is D. The author suggests that cats staring out the window might prefer going outside. This implies cats would likely be happier if they were allowed outdoors. For question 9, the answer is A. The word content means happy and satisfied. In the example, Michael is happy visiting the same beach every year, so he is content. For question 10, the answer is B. In the last paragraph, the author gives advice to make outdoor cats safer, like bringing them in at night and making sure they wear a collar with ID. That's the advice given in the passage. For question 11, the answer is D. People on both sides of the debate believe they are doing what's best for their cats. Whether they keep them indoors or let them outside, both groups think their choice is better for the cat's well-being. Question 28. Could a tornado form on a windy day when the sky is clear? Tell why or why not. The correct answer is C. No, a tornado starts to form in a storm cloud, so a tornado could not form on a day when the sky is clear. Let's explain this. Tornadoes need a storm cloud to form. A clear sky doesn't have the conditions needed, like strong winds and storm systems. So, the answer is C. For question 29, the correct answer is C. Funnel clouds were named after the swirling motion of air resembling a funnel, which is characteristic of their appearance. The diagrams show that a funnel cloud looks just like a funnel used in kitchens. It starts wide at the top and narrows as it moves downward, which is how it got its name. Question 30. Tornado. A left a longer path than tornado B. Does this mean that tornado A had to be traveling faster than tornado B? Explain your answer. The correct answer is A. No, tornado A could have been traveling more slowly than tornado B but lasted longer, so it left a longer path. Here's why. The length of the tornado's path depends on how long the tornado lasts, not just its speed. Tornado A could have been slower but lasted longer, giving it time to cover more ground. Question 31. If a tornado is moving across the ground at 50 kilometers per hour, how fast is the cloud above it moving? Use information from the text to support your answer. The correct answer is C. The cloud is also moving at 50 kilometers per hour. Every tornado moves along with the cloud above it. The text says that tornadoes move with the cloud above them, so if the tornado is going at 50 kilometers per hour, the cloud must also be moving at the same speed. Question 32. Can weather experts tell when a tornado might form? Use information from the text to support your answer. The correct answer is A. Yes. Since tornado watches happen when the conditions are right for a tornado, weather experts must be able to tell when a tornado might form. The text explains that a tornado watch is issued when conditions are favorable for a tornado. This means experts can predict when conditions are right, even if they cannot predict an exact tornado. Question 33. Write two main ideas found in the last four paragraphs of the text. The correct answer is B. 1. A tornado can be one of the most dangerous storms in nature. 2. A tornado does not stay in one place. In the last paragraphs, the text explains how dangerous tornadoes are and how they move across the ground instead of staying in one spot. For the first gap, the answer is green. The sentence says, "The wheat was yellow, the oats were," and describes the summertime countryside. Green is the best word here because it paints a picture of fresh growing oats in the lush fields. For the second gap, the answer is meadows. The fields and something was skirted by thick woods. What makes sense here? It is meadows. Meadows are grassy, open areas, and they fit perfectly into this countryside scene. For the third gap, the answer is surrounded. The sentence describes the mansion and says it had deep canals around it. Surrounded is the correct word because it shows how the canals circle the mansion completely. For the fourth gap, the answer is thickest. The sentence talks about the wildness of the area and compares it to a part of the wood. Thickest works here because it describes the most overgrown and dense part of the forest. For the fifth gap, the answer is preferred. The other ducks chose swimming on the canals instead of sitting with the mother duck among the burdock leaves. Preferred is the best word to show their choice. For the sixth gap, the answer is cracked. It says the eggs were hatching one after another. When eggs hatch, they crack open, so cracked is the perfect fit. For the seventh gap, the answer is peeped. The sentence describes the little ducklings emerging from the green leaves. Peeped is a great choice because it shows them peeking out carefully for the first time. For the eighth gap, the answer is pleased. The ducklings looked around happily. Their mother let them keep looking as long as they wanted. So pleased is the word that matches their joyful curiosity. For the ninth gap, the answer is extends. The mother duck tells her little ones that the world goes far beyond what they can see. Extends is the word that explains how far the world stretches out. For the 10th gap, the answer is weary. The mother duck is waiting for the last egg to hatch and is tired of sitting there for so long. Weary means tired, so it fits perfectly. For question 44, the question is 50% of 16. 50% means half. To find half of 16, we divide 16 by 2. The answer is 8. For question 45, the question is 25% of 28. 25% is the same as 1/4. To find 1/4 of 28, you divide 28 by 4. The answer is 7. For question 46, the question is 75% of 4. 75% is the same as 3/4. First, we find 1/4 by dividing 4 by 4, which equals 1. Then, to find 3/4, multiply 1 by 3. The answer is 3. This one can be tricky, so let's recap quickly. 75% means 3/4. Find 1/4 by dividing 4 by 4 to get 1, and then multiply that by 3 to get 3. For question 47, the question is 50% of 52. 50% means half. To find half of 52, divide it by 2. The answer is 26. For question 48, the question is 75% of 16. 75% is 3/4. To find this, first divide 16 by 4 to get 4. Then multiply 4 by 3. The answer is 12. For question 49, the question is 10% of 30. 10% means 1/10. To find 1/10 of 30, divide 30 by 10. The answer is 3. For question 50, the question is 50% of 36. 50% means half. Divide 36 by 2. The answer is 18. For question 51, the question is 70% of 50. 70% is 70 out of 100. To find 70% of 50, multiply 50 by 0.7. The answer is 35. For question 52, the question is 80% of 30. 80% means 80 out of 100. Multiply 30 by 0.8. The answer is 24. For question 53, the question is 5% of 40. 5% means 5 out of 100. Multiply 40 by 0.05. The answer is 2. Percentages. Homework 2. For question 54, the question is 50% as a fraction. 50% means 50 out of 100. When you simplify that, it becomes 1/2. The answer is A. For question 55, the question is 70% as a fraction. 70% means 70 out of 100. Simplify that to 7/10. The answer is C. For question 56, the question is 28% as a fraction. 28% means 28 out of 100. To simplify, divide both 28 and 100 by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7, and 100 divided by 4 is 25. The answer is C.
For question 57, changing following fractions into percentages, 1/4, you should know, is 25%. For more difficult fractions like 2/25, what you can do is you can convert the fraction into a fraction that has 100 as the denominator, because then you can easily convert that to a percentage. So how are we going to get from 2/25 to a fraction that has 100 as the denominator? Well, you ask, similar to equivalent fractions, you ask, how do I change from 25 to 100? So you have to times that by 4. So you're going to do the same thing to the 2. You're going to times it by 4, because that's copycat. And then that gives you 8/100. Now, anything over 100 is that as a percentage. So 8/100 means 8%. So our answer here is going to be 8. Question 59, same thing. Okay, we change the denominator to be 100, and then we're going to have to times the numerator by 4, because we did that to the denominator. 4 times 4 is 16. So that's going to be the percentage. For this one, how do we get to 100 from the denominator? We have to times by 10. So we're going to times the numerator by 10. That's going to give us 10%. For this one, we have to times by 5. We have to times the denominator by 5 to make it into 100. So we're going to times the numerator by 5. And 17 times 5 is 85. So it's going to be 85%, okay? For this one, 50, we have to times by 2. So if we times the 49 by 2, we should get 98%. So that's how you convert between fractions and percentages, especially if the denominator, if it goes into 100. If it doesn't go into 100, realistically, every question that you get will go into 100. What you might have to do is, for example, make into equivalent fractions that are bigger. So let's say you have 200 as a denominator, you just have to divide it by 2, right, instead of times it. But all of them should go into 100. Okay, question 63. So changing the following percentages into decimals. So any number as a percentage is just that over 100. So we already just went over this a second ago. So this is 25/100. This one is 10/100, etc., etc. Okay, so this is very easy. All of these are over 100. Now, one thing that the answers will expect you to do is to actually simplify these questions. So you can simplify 25/100 and you can make it into 1/4 if you divide both of them by 25. For question 64, you can take away the 0, so it'll be 1/10. For this one, 75/100, you can simplify that to 3/4. For question 66, that's 1/2. If you simplify 50/100, For 20 over 100, that just simplifies to 2 over 10, which then simplifies to 1 over 5. And then for 150 over 100, so that's an improper fraction, right? So that's going to be 1 and 1/2, or just 3 over 2, okay? So I'm going to rub this all out, and we can go look at question 69 now. So 0.03. Change the following decimals into percentages. Same, so the difference from decimal, right? So this is the tenths, and this is the hundredths. Sorry, not the tenths. This is the, I think that's it. It's like the 1/10, and this is the 1 over hundredths. So this is place value, okay? So if you, for example, had 0.1, that's just 1 over 10, or 1/10. So 0.3 is 3/10, right? This is place value, so you should understand this. If you need help, look at the decimals guidebook on the app. So on the Learn tab on the Math section, look at the decimals guidebook. This is the place value. Now, to change from decimal to percentage, especially if the decimals are in the first two, you can just convert this to 36%, okay? Because if you try and think about this, so if you know how to convert from decimal to fraction, which is, again, it's taught in the guidebook on the decimal section in the Learn tab, okay? There's a really nice guidebook on it, but if you convert this is actually just 36 over 100. So if you convert this, 0.36, that's just going to be 36%, okay? So now we've got 0.03, this is going to be 3%, okay? 0.35 is going to be 35. 72 is going to be 5. 42, and this is going to be 109, because you can see there's a 1 here in front. So it's quite simple to actually, you should be able to do this just by looking at it. You can just look at the number and sort of ignore the zeros in front of it, right? So this is just 3 because it's got 0 in front of it. Okay, we got percentage increase. So original amount, if we increase it by 25% for question 75, what do we get? First of all, we have to figure out 25%. Like 1/4, right? How do we figure that out? We divide it by 4. So that's going to be 14 if you divide, is 25%. So the new amount, if you increase it by 25%, you have to add 14 to it. So that's going to be 70. Now, increase by 50%. So half of 6 is 3, okay? If you add 3 back onto 6, you'll get 9. So that's an increase of 50%. Question 77, 20%. If you, 10% of 5 is 0.5. Okay, so 20% is going to be double of that, which is 1. So if you add 1 to 5, you'll get 6. 10% of anything is the same as dividing anything by 10. So 5, what you have to do is you move the decimal point 1 place to the left. Okay. Why is 10% of anything dividing by 10? Well, because 10% is equal to 1 over 10. So you think about 1 over 10 of anything, like 1 over 10 of 100. All you're doing actually there is you're dividing 100 by 10. Question 78. So 90% of 10 is 9. So if you add that back on, that's going to give you 19. Now, 70% of 30. First, we have to figure out what is 10% of 30. So that's going to be 3. Okay. And then 70% is going to be 7 times 3. Okay. 7 times 3 is 21. Okay. So that's 70% of 30. So if we add 21 back to 30, that's going to give you 51. All right. Now we've got percentage decrease. Again, the easiest way to figure out 30% of something is first of all figure out what is 10% of it. So 10% of 50 is 5. If you just divide it by 10. 30% is obviously going to be 3 times that. So that's going to be 15. 50% is half, right? I'm sorry, 15 for question 80. 50 is 30%. So we have to decrease it by 15. So decrease by 30%. So if I do 50 minus 15, that should give me 35. Now if we decrease this by 50%, first of all, figure out what is half, okay? Half of 18 is 9. If we decrease it by 9, we'll get 9. Now we've got 4%, so decrease 25 by 4%. So first we have to figure out, instead of figuring out 10%, because we can't use that, we can figure out what is 1% of 25. So if 10% is divided by 10, that's going to be 2.5, and 1% is going to be 0.25. Okay, I'm going to rub out what we've got around here, because it's getting a bit confusing here. 1% is going to be 0.25. Now, what is 4% going to be? It's going to be 4 times bigger than 1%, right? So if we times 0.25 by 4, that is just 1. So if we decrease 25 by 4%, which is basically 1, we basically have to do 25 minus 1, which is 24. All right. Now, again, these are getting a bit more complicated here. So look at question 83. 60 decreased by 35%. So first figure out what is 5%. So 10% is 6, then 5% is going to be half of that, which is 3. Okay. Now we can get from 5% and we can figure out what is 35%. Why can we do that? Because 5% and 35%. You can see that 5%, all we have to do is we have to times by 7, right? 35% is 7 times bigger than 5%. So we can do the same thing to the 3. So times it by 7, that's going to give you 21. So 35% of 60 is 21. So if you want to decrease it by 21, so 60 minus 21 is 39. All right, question 84. 10%, so 15%, we have to first figure out what is 5%, right? So 10% is divided by 10, so that's going to be 4. Okay, 5% is going to be 2. Okay, so 15% is just going to be 3 times 5%, or you can add 10% and 5%, right? If you think about it, 10% plus 5% is going to equal 15%. So what I like to do is you can add 4 and 2, because that's 10% and 5%. So that's going to be 6, okay? Now if you decrease 40 by 6, that's going to be 34. Perfect. Now, question 85. This is Jacob answered 80% of the questions in a test correctly. He answered 32 of the questions correctly. Work out the total number of questions in the test. So 80% of this test gave him 32 marks. We have to figure out what is 100%. So we can do the same method that we've been doing. We ask how did we get from 80% to 100%? And you apply the same thing to this. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to divide 80 by 8. Okay, so we divided it by 8, and that gave us 10%. And then we times that by 10. So we did 2 things to it. To 80%, we divided it by 8, that gave us 10. And then we times that by 10, and that gave us 100%. So you're doing 2 different things to 80% to make it into 100%. You're making it smaller first, and then you're making it bigger. So we can apply that, and we can do the exact same thing to our answer right there, which is 32. So let's first divide it by 8. 32 divided by 8 is 4. And then if we times it by 10, like we did to the 80%, that's going to give us 40. So the test is actually out of 40 marks, okay?
For question 86, the problem says, I have 8 bags of sweets. My brother eats 50% of them. How many do I have left? The answer is 4 bags. Let me explain. 50% means half. To find half of 8, we divide 8 by 2. That gives us 4. So, your brother eats 4 bags and you are left with 4 bags. For question 87, the problem says, 1 large pizza costs £10. If I buy 3 of them, I get 30% off the total bill. How much should I pay? The answer is £21. Here's how to work it out. First, calculate the total cost for 3 pizzas. Each pizza costs £10, so 3 pizzas cost £30. Next, find 30% of £30 to figure out the discount. 30% means 30 out of 100, so multiply 30 by 0.3. That equals £9. Finally, subtract the £9 discount from the total cost of £30. 30 minus 9 equals 21. So, you pay £21 for the 3 pizzas. For question 88, the problem says, a carpenter needs to cut a plank of wood that is 300 centimeters long into 5 equal pieces. What percentage of the plank is each piece? The answer is 20%. Let's solve this step by step. First, divide 300 centimeters by 5 to find the length of each piece. 300 divided by 5 equals 60 centimeters. Now, calculate what percentage 60 centimeters is of the whole plank. To do this, divide 60 by 300, then multiply by 100. 60 divided by 300 equals 0.2. Multiply 0.2 by 100 and you get 20%. So, each piece is 20% of the plank. For question 89, the problem says, Mr. Usher is 190 centimeters tall and his sister Sarah is 10% shorter. How tall is Sarah? The answer is 171 centimeters. Here's how we solve it. First, find 10% of Mr. Usher's height. 10% means 10 out of 100, so multiply 190 by 0.1. That equals 19 centimeters. Since Sarah is 10% shorter, subtract 19 centimeters from 190 centimeters. 190 minus 19 equals 171. So, Sarah is 171 centimeters tall. For question 90, the problem says, the weather forecaster says that it is 20 degrees Celsius in London, but only 80% as hot in New York. How hot is it in New York? The answer is 16 degrees Celsius. Let's solve it. To find 80% of 20, multiply 20 by 0.8. 20 multiplied by 0.8 equals 16. So it is 16 degrees Celsius in New York.
Okay, question 91, NVR matrices. So we have to look at how do we get from the left to the right. So what happened? Well, it went from a white shape to a striped shape. So this one should turn the square striped, which is option C. Now for question 92, left to right, what changed? It rotated 90 degrees anti-clockwise. So if we rotate this anti-clockwise, we should get an L shape that looks like this. Question 93, the shape got smaller, okay? So if we have a smaller star, that's going to be option B. Question 94, and this is a 3x3 grid. So instead of it being like left or right, it's probably going to be a pattern like this. So the pattern I can see is that each row has these 3 different shapes. It has a circle, it has this shape, and it has a triangle. Circle, triangle, and this shape. So what's missing here is a circle. B is the right-sized circle, D is too small. Question 95, again, if you look at this is more of a pattern, right? So you can see this has gotten to be, all the diagonals have an arrow, and then these ones have these bow ties, right? So this should be a right-facing arrow, which is option C. Okay, verbal reasoning. Let's give me question 96. So this is compound words. You have to put 2 words together that make a new word. So you can see up here, comfortable for question 96. For question 97, you've got painkiller. None of the other words work. For this one, you've got pigeonhole. Question 99, you have tombstone. In question 100, you have sandbag. So it's really about looking at the options and seeing which one works the best.
Okay, on to shading shapes. Shade 50% of the shapes. 50% means half, so for each shape, you will shade half of the total area. Next, you need to shade 25% of the shapes. 25% means 1/4. That means you will shade 1 out of every 4 equal parts in the shape. Finally, shade 75% of the shapes. 75% is the same as 3/4. You need to shade 3 out of every 4 equal parts. Let's move on to the percentage calculations. For the first question, what is 40% of 25? To find 40%, multiply 25 by 0.4. When you do that, the answer is 10. Next, what is 75% of 12? 75% is the same as 3/4. To find this, divide 12 by 4 to get 3, then multiply 3 by 3. That gives you 9. Now, let's find 20% of 40. 10% of 40 is 4, so 20% will be 8. The next question asks for 25% of 48. 25% is the same as 1/4. Divide 48 by 4 and you get 12. Next, let's work out 95% of 300. To find 95%, multiply 300 by 0.95. The answer is 285. What is 60% of 50? Multiply 50 by 0.6 and the answer is 30. Next, we need to find 100% of 87. 100% means the whole amount, so the answer is 87. Now let's calculate 20% of 60. Multiply 60 by 0.2 and you get 12. The next question is 45% of 60. Multiply 60 by 0.45. That gives you 27. Finally, what is 15% of 60? To find this, multiply 60 by 0.15. The answer is 9. Now we are changing percentages into fractions. The first question is to change 20% into a fraction. 20% means 20 out of 100. Simplify 20 over 100 to get 1/5. Next, change 5% into a fraction. 5% means 5 out of 100. Simplify that to get 1/20. Now, let's change 35% into a fraction. 35% means 35 out of 100. Simplify that to 7/20. Next, change 1% into a fraction. 1% is 1 out of 100. Now, change 80% into a fraction. 80% means 80 out of 100. Simplify that to 4/5. Finally, let's change 90% into a fraction. 90% means 90 out of 100. Simplify that to 9/10. Now let's move on to the next part. Now we are changing fractions into percentages. The first question is to change 3/4 into a percentage. Divide 3 by 4, then multiply by 100. That gives you 75%. Next, change 3/10 into a percentage. Divide 3 by 10, then multiply by 100. The answer is 30%. Finally, change 25 over 100 into a percentage. Since it is already over 100, you can see that the answer is 25%. Finally, we have percentage increase and decrease problems. For the first question, the original amount is 50 and the increase is 2%. First, find 2% of 50 by multiplying 50 by 0.02. That gives you 1. Add 1 to 50 and the new amount is 51. Next, the original amount is 21 and the increase is 100%. 100% means the whole amount, so multiply 21 by 1, which gives you 21. Add 21 to the original 21 and the new amount is 42. Now let's look at a percentage decrease. The original amount is 40 and the decrease is 45%. First, find 45% of 40 by multiplying 40 by 0.45. That gives you 18. Subtract 18 from 40 and the new amount is 22. Finally, the original amount is 45 and the decrease is 60%. First, find 60% of 45 by multiplying 45 by 0.6. That gives you 27. Subtract 27 from 45 and the new amount is 18.
Alright, let's look at the extra NVR questions for this. again, it looks like the pattern is going downwards this time, okay? So you can see it's the same colored shape, just rotated in different ways. So the first two options, 1 and 2, these are always reflections. You can see this is a reflection. So this one should be a reflection, which is option C. For the next question, we have this sort of style, right, where this is a reflection of this is a reflection of this. So on number 2 right here, this should be a reflection. So which one over here is a reflection? Is option E. If you look at the square and the white thing, it should be top left and bottom right. Okay. Next question. So this is a 4x4. I can see a pattern. It's going up and down. These are reflections, so this is going to be a reflection. D is the only reflection here. Next question. You can see this looks like a puzzle, like this sort of looks like it's a picture almost. So you can see this and this reflections, okay? So this should be reflected into the corner, which gives you option C. It's the only one where it's got the black square at the top left and the correct lining. Okay, next question. You've got an arrow, so this is a downwards pattern. So you can see X1 right here is rotated 45 degrees and then 45 degrees again, okay, clockwise. So this one should be rotated 45 degrees clockwise, meaning it should be pointing like diagonal. Now, the square, it should stay on the right side. So we've got option B here. This one is wrong. Next question here. You got a reflection from top to bottom. So it should be one of these. Additionally, this inside shape becomes a straight line, so it should be option A. Next question here. It's left to right, you can see, or right to left. So the colors just change here. The outside should be gray, and the shapes inside should be white. Option C is the only option that has that. Next question. We have so this is a downwards pattern. And you can see it goes white, black, grey. So it's going to be black, grey, white probably. This has got grey, white, black. So all of them have different colours. So it should be a white outside circle. Now what else is changing? Not just the outside shape, but also the inside shapes. So you can see this only got one shape inside. This has got 2. This one's got 3. So realistically, we should have 3 shapes inside. So it should either be B or E. Now the square, it basically depends on should the circle outside be black or white. You can see on all of these options it's white, so it should be option E. Okay, next question. We have got a reflection from the top to the bottom. So let's reflect this. Can't be this option. Can't be this option. Sorry, it can be that option. It can't because of the lining. So one other thing that changes is the lining or the shading changes. So you can see this is dashed, this is lined. So we should have a lined and a dashed. So this should be lined, this should be dashed, which is option D is correct. Okay, next question. We are being reflected. Okay, so if we reflect from top to bottom, that means the triangle should be away. So we should have something like this, okay? When you're reflecting, you look at the closest point and then you mirror it. And the triangle should be up here and it should be pointing downwards. The only option that matches that is either A or E. Okay. Now, on top of reflecting it, they also change colors, which means it should be E. Next question here. And we've got a left to right pattern. You can see each row has these three shapes, which is a plus, a semicircle, and a pentagon. What's missing here is a pentagon. It should be of medium size. So you can see each row has different sized shapes: small, medium, big. Option D is your right answer there. Next question here for the hexagon. Changes from hexagon to pentagon. So we should change this to a pentagon. So that's going to be either option, it could be any of these options. The circle shape at the bottom, it stays in the same position, but it rotates. So it should be a bit like this, vertical. Now it should either be C or D. What else happens? The color stays the same, so it should still have a black box, so it should be C. Okay, next question. We've got three triangles, they're getting bigger. Three squares getting bigger. Circle should be medium sized. Looks like the pattern needs to change each time. It needs to be either cross hatching, straight lines, or grey. So what's missing here is cross hatching. So that's going to be option B, medium sized triangle with cross hatching. Next question. Got a plus here. And we've got 3 lines. So 2 lines, 3 lines, and 4 lines. You see it's increasing from left to right. This one got 1, 2, 3 dots. So again, increasing left to right. Here we've got 1 gap. Then we got 2 gaps. So we should have 3 gaps in our next option. And also this size, I think, is probably an issue. So you've got small, medium, and big. Okay, so this is small and big, so we should have a medium-sized one, which is again going to be option C, which has got 3 gaps and is a medium-sized pentagon. Okay, next question. So this is left to right. You've got a reflection down the middle. So left to right is going to be reflected. That's going to be either A, E, or D. So I think D actually has got this line in the wrong position, so it can't be D. And it has to be E because the color of the square has to change as well. Okay, verbal reasoning, compound words again. This time you can just circle them, so you haven't got options. You have to circle which two make the compound word. So you've got bullet shade, bullet canal, bulletproof. There you go, bulletproof is the easy word there. Compound word. So here we got drawless, draw more, draw even, shameless, shame more, shame even. So I think shameless. So again, I'm trying the first word and I'm trying them against all of them. So fight power, fight vision, fight full. Sail power, sail vision, sail full. Firepower, fire vision, fire full. So firepower, the compound word there. Arm waste, arm enjoy, arm ache. Face waste, face enjoy, face ache. And it's going to be probably headache is the best compound word there. Okay, overpast, overmined, overgone. Underpast, undermined, undergone. And then through past, through mind, through gone. So undergone is the compound word there. This one, we've got backtrack. Next one, we've got bookworm. And the final one, we've got outermost. So something that is outermost. Okay, that is the end of the walkthrough.